Yeah, so basically, I guess I'll just get this one on the road here. This is Living Off Borrowed Time. And as we have, can't think of a better way to start this one off than with, this is basically RYM's unofficial hip-hop podcast, because we're not allowed legally to say we're officially RYM anything. Otherwise, Sharifi will send his lawyers after us. But I can't think of any better way to start this off than with the person that people would most associate with hip-hop and RYM. Please welcome to the podcast a person who probably is responsible for most of the hip-hop database maintenance on RYM, Diction. Alex, great to have you on the show after we spent pretty much most of the past 40 episodes taking shots at you. Or another. Now you get a chance to throw some shade back at us.
It's okay. Everybody's allowed their little opinions.
But honestly, I couldn't think of anybody else I'd rather have on for this episode. A very special episode under very sad circumstances. I kind of alluded to this in our last episode that, well, I don't know in what sequence that you're going to be hearing these, but the last episode we recorded was the year-end episode, which unfortunately came as MF Doom passed on. Daniel Doomsday passed on. Well, he passed on on Halloween of last year, but the world found out about it on New Year's Eve. And I said that
we still don't know what happened.
Wasn't it? I heard it was wasn't it an embolism or something? But that might have been speculation. As usual with Doom, he left everybody up in the air. Yeah, he pretty much picked the most MF Doom way to let the world know he was gone.
In the year of the mask.
In the year of the mask, and I'll say right now that we won't be doing our usual end theme song, Stagnated Pace by Can Kick for any. This is going to be even when I don't plan the intro is terrible. I'm trying to shove way too much information into this, but this is actually part one of a 3-part series. A career as important and encompassing as Doom's couldn't be fit into one episode. So with Diction, we're going to be discussing his early career with KMD through to Operation Doomsday and the MFEP with MF Grimm. Part 2, we'll have another very special guest that I don't want to spoil, but more RYM royalty coming up. And we'll be discussing his what most people will consider the peak of his career with the Mad Villain collaboration, his amazing run with Victor Vaughn, King Ghidorah, and most of that. And then Volume 3, which we're going to call Leftovers. We just have some schmuck we have on the show most of the time, and we'll be handling all the stuff that the other two didn't want to deal with as we cover the latter half of Doom's career. But anyway, as I was saying, that we're not going to be doing our normal theme song for this. For each episode, we're going to have, as when Doom passed, obviously, artists were lining up to pay their respects. And for each episode, we're going to have a tribute song that was released for Doom. And in this episode, it's going to be Mike Eagles for Doom, which is a beautiful track. And he has a line in there about how Doom's going to make it so he's going to sell more masks than Dr. Fauci. which was a great line. So in the year of the mask, we lost probably the most famous person to wear a mask who wasn't a luchador. So,
well, I have to say that his death didn't really affect me in the same way like Dilla did, because when Dilla died, he was in his prime. Like, Donuts had just came out, but we had heard it a few months before it was leaked. But like Doom, we've had the best of Doom like 15 years ago, and we had the odd projects here that were nice, but I wasn't like, oh my God, we've lost so many possible classic albums that were coming. I kind of felt that Doom was kind of over, and if he would have come back with something nice, well, that's a plus, but it wasn't like a prime of his career. I don't say that to be mean. I'm just comparing like the death status, like Pac and Biggie, Big L, they were like all very young and still had many more great things to come probably. And Doom, well, we don't know. In the last 10 years, we've had an odd project here and there, but not that much.
Yeah, I would agree in terms of what was most like, there was the shock of it, like, but in terms of artistic output, I would agree that his best days seem to be behind him. Like, he would still put out something like, there was that track on the DeBry album, Lil Motherfuckers, which I thought was hilarious and showed that he could still turn on when he wanted to. The last, I don't know if it's the last recorded output he had. Obviously, I'm sure stuff's going to surface over time, over the course of the year or so. But the thing he did, the Lucy he did with Bad Bad Not Good, Chocolate Conquistadors, that was real. I thought that was really solid, and that kind of pointed in a new direction for him with live instrumentation, something you didn't really hear too much of Doom doing. But I agree with that. Like, he hadn't really put out a really like great project in some time. Like, I'd say that the last overall project that I really felt from him was probably JJ Doom. I mean, we'll get to that when we get to that. Like, that's going to be a big thing to talk about in the third episode.
I like JJ Doom and the Czarface album. That I'm not saying that, but it wasn't like Doom, you know?
Yeah, it felt a lot like he was trying to recapture, well, maybe not recapture old glory, but I mean, there was a lot of stuff in his life that obviously led to him being more and more checked out of rap. Like, you know, between his son dying and the government telling him to fuck off and stay in England, like those two things, I think would kind of, you felt like his heart wasn't in it so much, and his style of rapping definitely did get like crankier and more deliberate. Like, I mean, I think it's kind of telling that Lil Motherfuckers was the most like memorable thing he'd done in the past couple of years, because that's just basically like the most get off my lawn song imaginable. But yeah, I agree in that case. But it was still like, I think the biggest shock of Doom dying was that you always thought he was going to be around, even if he wasn't going to give you another Mad Villainy, another Danger Doom, another King Ghidorah. You always thought he would just drop something, that he would always be there, that there would always be the potential of another Doom song, that he was just going to be a presence. Like, he said on Born Like This, disappear, reappear, disappear again. Like, that he was always just going to be there. And now it's just like so concrete. You're never going to get any more MF Doom music, any more new Doom music, period. He's moved on from this plane, and it just felt like such a crushing fucking loss. And of course,
it was a surprise, because it was like, what the fuck? Like, what happened? Like, we nobody expected it. Like, we didn't hear any news. Oh, Doom is sick. He's not doing well. Give some prayers, like the usual things that we hear from older rappers. But it was a surprise.
It was a year where, you know, there were rappers that either had passed or were affected, you know, via COVID. Things like Scarface, for example, was the first thing I could think of in my head. And there was like a moment where we were questioning if we were going to lose Scarface, right? If I recall.
Yeah, it seemed pretty dire there for a second.
You know, thankfully, that ended up not being the case, and he pulled through. And that's, you know, a rare bit of good news in a year where there wasn't much.
Yeah, if anyone's going to kill Scarface, it's going to be Jay Prince.
Right. But yeah, I think we kind of went over on the initial year end about our reactions, but I echo kind of Diction's thoughts. Like, I didn't really know how to feel when I first found out. You know, I was at work, and it just kind of happened, and you know, there was no build up or anything.
It was definitely a shock, and immediately as like I started listening to his music, which made me rediscover it again, because they're older albums and they're not really in constant rotation here, but like revisiting them as like, oh my god, yeah, he was so good.
He was. And I guess one of the things that I wanted to do, and I'm going to do this for all three of the episodes, is ask, when were you first aware of Doom? Because like, you were probably more aware of him before either of us. I think you were probably aware of him well before Optimal was even born, I would say.
No, it wasn't. I discovered him. I've heard about Doom on the internet around Operation Doomsday. Like, because in 1999, I was 16, 17 years old, and I didn't have the internet at home, but in my computer class, I would sneak up on the internet and look up hip-hop stuff on that. And so I heard about Operation Doomsday, but me being from Canada, it was not an easy album to find. And actually, I never saw it in stores during those years. It wasn't until 2003 with King Ghidorah, Victor Vaughn, the Mad Villain leak. These three were one of my friends brought me these MP3s, and that's how I discovered Doom. And shortly after, I got into Operation Doomsday and KMD, all via downloads, because even those were not easy to find. So I'm not a old school Doom fan. I kind of got in before Mad Villainy, well, most people, I guess. Well, depending on the age, of course.
Yeah. Well, long before Doomsday, there was KMD. And this was, well, I guess we'll start from the very beginning. Something that we were actually discussing right before we added you to the call was, didn't do the entirety of my homework for this episode because I didn't listen to, probably, since we're starting from the beginning, I did not listen to the origin story of, before there was Doom, before there was even KMD, there was Zev Love X on the Gas Face, the song that broke him out. And I've heard this in the past, obviously, very important song, but I did not listen to it fresh for the episode. I was actually about to play I started playing the video right before Caleb added me to the call. First, and I didn't get to the Zev verse on it. Maybe you have fresher recollections of this. But, I mean, clearly very important for Doom. It got him signed, right? It's what this verse got KMD their deal, correct?
Nice. Dante Ross was sort of the A&R for Tommy Boy, but then he got to Elektra around 1990, and that's when he put KMD signed. So during those years, his label mates were Leaders of the New School, Patrique and CL Smooth, Del the Funky Homo Sapien, and probably another act, but that was sort of the roster that Dante Ross put out. And you might know him from Stimulated Dummies. They were a pretty important production group in the 90s.
That's a pretty weird roster for a major label too, at any point, but like even especially 1990, like that's pretty eclectic. Like Del, Del. I can't believe that Del, like, I'm not the biggest Del fan, but some of the stuff, like, I Wish My Brother George Was Here is a very eclectic album to get released on a major.
Well, I think it was the time for like West Coast was forming its sound, like with the more funky stuff for Parliament samples, Zap samples. So he was just at the right place, and also he had the Ice Cube connection, being his cousin. So I think it was a right time. But Del, as we know him later on, he became this sort of underground figure and like anti-mainstream. But no, he had hits. He had hits on his first album.
So Gas Face is what broke Doom out, and then so KMD comes out with Mr. Hood. This is their first album, and I came to this obviously after, like, I pretty much came to Doom around the same time that you did, the same way that you did, more or less. We covered this in brief on the year end it was around the same time. It was 03, 04. It was around Mad Villain, and Ghidorah was my first favorite out of the three. Eventually, Mad Villain will become my favorite rap album of all time. So I've immersed myself in those, and then I worked backwards: Doomsday, and then KMD. And I think I got to the KMD stuff after buying these. Like, it was a little later. It was after the Special Herbs 0 to 9 box set, which I maintain is a great box set that was also kind of a ripoff. I got it when I worked at Borders, and so I got it at a discount. So it was only like $15, but it became the cheapest cardboard ever. King Aaron, previous guest, the guy who got us in trouble because I dared to refer to him as a Makami expert. He told me I can't say shit about Nature Sounds because I'm in the Makami server now, and they put out a bunch of his shit. But fuck you, Nature Sounds, because you put out the cheapest box set I've ever bought. With the track list was completely wrong. And but the one bonus you got on there, I believe, was a you got KMD instrumentals on the very end of it. And what's interesting about it is that they sounded very different from what I was used to out of Doom. So I was like, okay, so I'm going to check out this KMD stuff. And it really, I did not move on to Black Bastards, which we'll get to eventually, obviously, till much later, because when I heard Mr. Hood, everybody says this. You got to be prepared that this is not MF Doom. This is Zev Love X. Mm-hmm. And what I got out of it at first was I was just expecting Doom, and I got this other guy, and the second guy who sounded even less like Doom. And when I first heard it, I was like, "Oh, that's his brother, right? The one who died." It's not. His brother's the DJ. Onyx. Yeah, it's Onyx, not that Onyx.
Yeah.
By the way,
that Onyx would sound a little more aggressive.
Yes. And so at the time, it didn't really resonate with me. And it was fine, but it was just like, it sounds a lot like 1990. And at the time, I was just kind of rejecting the past. Like, I wanted more Doom, and this didn't sound like Doom to me. Doomsday barely even sounded that much like Doom to me at the time, because it sounded a little dated. It wasn't as intricate or conceptual. I mean, I was being stupid. It's just as intricate and conceptual, just in a different sort of, like, it's not as formed as Mad Villain or Food or all those stuff, but that's just because he was working out the character. Like, it was the origin story of the character. But to get to the origin story, you needed his previous persona, which was Zev. Now, revisiting it for this episode, I appreciated it more, but it's still very much of its time, and it sounds like a De La record to me. That's mainly what I got out of it. It sounds really Daisy Age. It sounds really Prince Paul without so much of the humor. Like,
well, I think it's a funny record.
I don't think it's as fun. I mean, it's as much of the Prince Paul style humor. I'll say that much. Like, I think Prince Paul is funnier, but there are funny moments on it. Don't get me wrong, but it's kind of like, I think it's more that I got a lot. Like, I kept picking up on like the conscious end of it, which is like, it's funny though. The dude who made One Beer and America's Most Blunted, he's really mad at people fucking partying on this album. Like. And he would be on Black Bastards too, but it felt better on Black Bastards, I think, because Black Bastards was darker and more aggressive, whereas some of the preachier lines on here seem at odds with like the happy Daisy Age production. I seem like I'm negative on it. I'm not. It's a fun album. It's a very fun album, but I like the second one better. It's goofy, but sometimes I think the goofiness and the consciousness are a little at odds with each other.
I would say that if I can only keep one album outside of Mad Villainy, it would be Mr. Hood.
Really?
Yes.
Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was happy to do this segment, so I can maybe sell you a little bit more on Mr. Hood.
Okay. I mean, floor is yours, man. That's really like over fucking Food, over Ghidorah, over Doomsday. Wow.
Okay. Food maybe. He's got a really good discography, but like Mr. Hood is really like special to me because it doesn't sound like anything else. You are right. Yes, Prince Paul has a sort of influence native tongues, but the whole concept with the English record and them interacting with Mr. Hood, which is this guy from like this language record that they're just taking samples of and then having a conversation with him, I think that's one of the most creative things done in hip-hop. And that's something that I sort of miss, is like when producers and rappers would interact with the vocal samples themselves. I think and Easy does it. He does it on that album. Like Dre's just shooting out some stuff, and Eazy's responding to the vocal sample that Dre just put out. So I'm very fond of this style of concept record originality, and the production is also pretty unique. Yes, it has its native tongue style, but the drums aren't exactly like De La Soul or like Tribe Called Quest or Jungle Brothers. They really have their own style. And well, it's not an MF Doom record. Yeah, that I will agree. It's not an MF Doom record. It's a KMD record. And yes, it's 1991. Well, then again, 1991 is one of my favorite years for hip hop. I just love that style, and for me, it's one of the better albums of that year. So yeah, I just had Sub Rock also raps. Uh, but it's mostly Zev Love X doing the rapping. But you have like some tracks from Onyx, the Birdstone Kid, I think that's what his nickname is. But yeah, it's a very unique record. Peach Fuzz is a classic single for that time. So yeah, Mr. Hood, very special to me. I actually bought the CD later on when I was still buying CDs. I think to go back to your other point of the special herbs thing, like a lot of underground hip hop during that decade, the 2000s, was very cheap in the packaging.
Mm.
Like as a record collector, well, mostly CDs, I'd love to take out the booklet, read everything, and I would buy these underground records from like 2008, 2009, and they didn't even have liner notes, not even thank yous. It's like, okay, produced by this person and no information. Because before Spotify and YouTube and whatever, our algorithms were the liner notes. Because you didn't have like rate your music and everything like that. So to find more hip hop, you sort of have to look for the information very hard. So with your album cover, you would read the thank you notes, and then you would see, oh, that name. Oh, I think I saw their CD at the store too. So I might try to look for this group, and then that's how you would expand your knowledge. And now it's the opposite. We have all the knowledge available to us, but we don't have the time to explore it all.
Mm.
I think that's kind of a interesting point to make in terms of, like, I think there's a greater macro point to make about like the internet in general. Like, we went from not having to seek everything out and being more grateful for every scrap of information that we could get to being overloaded with information and not actually actively like taking advantage of that. And there's also so much more misinformation as a result of the availability of information and the way we can, you know, I don't know. You understand what I'm saying, even though I'm not expressing the point very well. Speaking about liner notes, though, I think that's why I really appreciated those Roots albums, because Questlove's liner notes were so good.
Oh my God, yeah. So much information, and it really got you looking for more. I remember in Philadelphia Half-Life, in one of the songs, he would say, this percussion was influenced by beat nuts, and that's how I got to beat nuts. It's from Philadelphia Half-Life's liner notes. So just these little connections here and there is how I discovered most things. Because you had the source and the few things that played on TV, but hip hop was pretty much limited then as far as exposure. Even if it was selling a lot of records, it wasn't like you had to look for it. It wasn't. But
when did you think you stopped having to look for it? Because I was personally limited research or otherwise. In my life, I feel like I always grew up in a time where hip hop was the most prominent genre. So I'm trying to think of when, in your mind, did you think that flipped?
Well, I think that it's a good parallel with Doom's music, because it will be for episode 2, the Victor Vaughn, King Ghidorah, Mad Villainy.
Yeah.
This is also the time where underground hip hop took over mainstream hip hop as far as quality. Because before 2003, all the best albums of the year are for hip hop are always on major labels. But starting from 2003, not only with MF Doom, but with a lot of other artists, Little Brother, for example, Brother Ali, Atmosphere, they were all coming in and making some of the best hip hop. And while the mainstream was still producing some quality albums, you had a lot more weaker albums. So that's kind of when it took over. So you still had to look for it in those times, because you could watch BET or whatever, but you wouldn't be getting the good shit. And that's a lot at that time. Also, a lot of my friends were saying, well, new hip hop sucks. Look, it's just this rapper and this rapper, they can't even form a sentence. And while they were right, it's because they didn't look further for more quality hip hop, and that you had to go on the internet, you had to make your own research, and it wasn't like I joined Rate Your Music in 2004, but it wasn't a hip hop reference at all until like 2010 maybe.
Yeah, you look at some of the reviews from the 2000s, they're better off left unsaid, I think.
I mean, I personally have looked to John Fox for my hip hop opinions. John Fox's reviews. Knock it back.
Knock it back. But like even like OK Player had some reviews going on, but like it wasn't like definitive. And I was really surprised in the 2010s when Pitchfork became like the sort of guide to hip hop. That left me confused because
Pitchfork. It's interesting that you would say 2010s when they became that guide to hip hop, because they were trying to like trend hump hip hop back in the early 2000s. I remember that they would get shit because they were in the early 2000s. They would like put shine on like Dipset and stuff, but it was very like gentrification-y. Like these like fucking Chicago hipsters were like giving high eights, and they had their like highly vaunted like scruffy, however you pronounce it, like style, like, oh man, getting an 8 from Pitchfork's like getting a 10 from somewhere else, and they'd give it to like Purple Haze or something. But there was something very just like, we're doing this for street cred, and or we're doing this ironically. Like, you got the impression that they weren't really sitting there bumping like more murder music by Joel Santana like that.
I'm not sure. I remember reading. I know that they employed people that ultimately went on to be like, respected writers other places, but I don't remember. Like, I remember reading like a lot of like David Drake's like Chicago, drill coverage in like the early 2010s and stuff, but I don't know who else they had on there. Anything that was written by like, anything that was written by like Schreiber or anything like that. It's definitely.
Well, they would also like, the other thing was they would have a lot of reviews where they would call out like, boring conscious rappers and like inauthenticity and street rappers. And it's like, yeah, y'all are a bunch of white journalism students from Chicago. Like, this just feels, there's something faintly gross about this. And the writing was generally not very good in general. So,
but the writing's not important. It's just the score, because that's what people look at. They're going to look at
the same thing with Fantano now. God damn it, I'm the one to bring this guy up. But it's the same thing with Fantano. It's like whatever he says in the review is irrelevant because people just fucking look at the description to see the score, and that's all they care about. And then we have some annoying argument on RYM about it. Like,
but yeah, for me it was a surprise because. Like the 2000s are not considered like the best decade for hip hop, but I thought it was pretty great overall. It's just most of the stuff was in underground hip hop, and these albums, they sold like 5,000 copies. And so, but they didn't really have the tools to market them as we do now with Bandcamp and all the streaming stuff. It's a lot easier for underground artists to strive within their own scene. But before that, you had to go to Sandbox, Automatic, and Hip Hop site to order these CDs. And it was very niche, but overall, it was a great era. And to see now that MF Doom's albums from that time, Mad Villainy Apart, that one always stood out. But to see Victor Vaughn and King Ghidorah being in the top albums of all time now, that is like sort of a new appreciation for this decade. Well, it's MF Doom related because of his status. People are finally checking it out. But these albums are very reflective of the era. And I think there's a lot more to rediscover in this era, but you'll have to get some Fantano or some big influential source to make these albums shine more.
Exactly, to kind of, put a light on them, to inspire people to dig for them. And I feel like I came across too negative on this album because I'm just looking through first of all, I agree with you about the whole overall concept being extremely well thought out, clever, well executed, and that I feel like that's something that's been lost, even though I feel like there's been kind of an upswing in like concept albums lately. I feel like that they're not like as this. It was bolder to do this then, and also I think it's kind of more ambitious than what Prince Paul did with De La, because the concepts on the De La Prince Paul records, at least up to Balloon, were more carried through the skits. And a skit is kind of like spoon feeding you the concept. They're literally talking at you. Whereas in here, you have both intra-song concepts like the Ho song, which you read, like, if you explain it to somebody and you look at the title, you're like, that's dumb. This is going to be misogynist crap. But then you listen to it and I'm like, that's kind of clever. They actually fucking pulled that off.
Yeah.
And then you have something like Boy Who Cried Wolf or Boogeyman, which are actually like really good conscious songs that don't like beat you over the head with it. Like, right. And then you have something like Peach Fuzz, which is just goofy fun. Like,
it's a fun song.
Yeah, it's a very fun song.
But also, you have to take in mind, Doom is born July 71. The album came out in May 91. So he was 19 years old when he made that album. And Sub Rock was 17 years old. Because I heard about Third Base would bring KMD on tour, and they had to ask their parents to take them out of school so that they could tour with them. So that's how young they were during the early days. So I think they were always into hip hop. To release like a major album, like Sub Rock at 17 years old, being a producer on Elektra Records, like wow, that is.
No, that's a huge accomplishment, and I think it's funny. I know you're not the biggest fan of this guy, but I think there's kind of a parallel to be drawn by the way that Zev raps on this versus Doom, to be compared with like early Earl Sweatshirt, who obviously I think he would probably say, like, and the video came out of Earl and Tyler vibing out at the Doom show.
I love the video.
Yeah, but like I think you can kind of compare early Earl stuff where he sounds so much more youthful to like the way he would sound in his later records, until your favorite record, Some Rap Songs, I believe it's called.
I'll give it another shot eventually.
But yeah, just in terms of like being like really like youthful on this, compared to how even by Doomsday he would have a much like that came with, you know, adopting the character and also all the things that had happened, like with his record deal, losing his brother. I mean, we'll get to all that in time, but it's just very interesting to view this through what we know about how Doom's career arc in life would go. But like you said, yeah, like he literally had to ask his fucking parents permission to go on tour to support this album. Yeah. So, and you can hear that, and that kind of accounts, I guess, for like, you know, like the fucking 5%er lines on here and stuff. Like, yeah, well, he's really into that shit because he's got youthful enthusiasm for it. It makes sense.
That was the thing at the time. Like
that is true. Yeah, Nation of Gods and Earths and all that shit.
No, Brand Nubian was the other one on Elektra that I forgot. Which
makes sense. They're on here. Yeah.
Yeah. But for 1988, you had Public Enemy, It Takes a Nation of Millions, and NWA, Straight Outta Compton. If we look back now, NWA is obviously the most influential out of the two because gangsta rap, it took everything by storm in the mid to late 90s. But as far as immediate impact, Public Enemy were much more influential right away. And 89, 1990, 1991, Public Enemy influence is all over the albums. So you have some Malcolm X samples on Mr. Hood, just vocal sample, and the stuff that you would find on Public Enemy records, because that's just how everything, like Afrocentricity was, it was almost part of every album, especially from New York. That's just something you would bring into your music at the time. So yes, there are some traces of its time. Not that it's a bad thing, but it was really the thing to do back then.
Mm.
I think you were quiet on the. Oh, you were actually.
I was going to have to answer your question. The reason why I've been kind of quiet is because I just heard this album for the first time yesterday. So, and not. I mean, I had heard. God, I heard Black Bastards a while ago because it just wasn't. To circle back to our previous point about seeking things out and things being on your radar. And I heard Black Bastards a couple years ago. I hadn't heard this album because it wasn't like things just kind of slip you by when you're in like the RYM bubble. You know what I mean? And so like,
yeah,
you might be hyper focused. Like for me, how I am is like I kind of get focused on like certain scenes and things like for a period of time, and then I'll go to like, another thing. So probably when I listened to Black Bastards, I just knew it was like, oh, this is like, you know, the big album of Doom's group. That was probably my, initial kind of reason why I was listening to it. And I didn't even probably consider that there was one that came before it, 9 years before. So I heard it yesterday, and I think I have like a very similar take to Patrick on it. Like, it reminds me of other things. It doesn't necessarily sound like all of them, but it does remind me of some other things. I think, Diction, your perspective on this is really interesting. I actually think there's a parallel with like some Brand Nubian stuff too, which they're on here. Like, I haven't listened to like Brand Nubian's debut in a while, but I remember liking it, but I don't remember being big on like really their other albums that much. I wasn't huge into Brand Nubian overall. I don't know.
The first brand, I think I talked about this on the podcast before, but like I like to talk about how, my brother's a shithead and whatever, but like one thing I will always give him credit for is playing me a lot of foundational hip hop. And speaking of foundation, the first Brand Nubian I ever heard was Foundation. And that really, like, I'd never heard hip hop like that direct. That was probably the first conscious album I heard. And and I like it really, like, I mean, it didn't really apply to me at all. Like driving around a suburban neighborhood hearing this shit, but it was like, it was just the level of writing and delivery. I could feel the gravity. Like, it definitely, like, the gravity came across to it. And it was like, this is definitely like a level of something that, like, I'd heard Wu-Tang, like 36 Chambers before that, obviously. And like there were conscious elements to that sort of thing, but hearing it like so direct and plain and without like the trappings of gangster shit that were on like 36 Chambers and like the kung fu sort of stuff, like aspect to it, like that was definitely very important for me. So I can't say that like, so I came to Brand Nubian backwards too. So that's it. So I had like a different perspective on Brand Nubian.
No, it's a good album, and this KMD album, the debut is good too. I did notice immediately that it just sounds like nothing else I had heard from Doom. Like, it kind of caught me a little off guard, but I was tipped off by the cover art. The cover art's fun. It's kind of I don't know who designed it, but I would just love to know their thought process because it's very homemade.
It fits the theme for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of the theme, since Diction mentioned the theme, I feel like that was a big influence on Madlib, specifically the Quasimodo records, the way, like, talking back with the sample, like, because you hear that a lot.
Yes,
especially in the first, like, few tracks, I feel like.
Yeah, and you hear that a lot on the Unseen and on Further Adventures, like tracks like Raw Deal, where it's just like he as Quaz is talking back and forth with the Melvin Van Peebles samples, like the Melvin Van Peebles character from I forget the name of the film, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, he kind of uses that in the same way the Mr. Hood character is like a active part of this album. So I think that, and that's interesting considering how much of a part Madlib would be of Doom's career arc.
Yeah, when they met, Doom didn't know who Madlib was. Well, he wasn't big or anything. But
I mean, because at that point, like, he'd only really done the Loot Pack stuff and Quaz. So, and Yesterday's New Quintet, which no one really cared about because no one really cared about Stone's Throw until Mad Villain.
Yeah.
On a larger scale.
I heard Loot Pack before Doom, actually, because I was a big Alcoholics fan. And you had Alcoholics features on Loot Pack, and Dilated People. So I like that old West Coast boom bap scene. So that's how I got to Loot Pack. But I didn't know Madlib would become Madlib. So and actually I missed on Quasimodo at that time. I only got to Quasimodo maybe around the time I got into Victor Vaughn and stuff. And Shades of Blue, around that time. But to get back to Brand Nubian, One for All is one of my favorite albums, their debut album. And that's also a very unique album with very smooth, funky sounds. Like, it's not like hyper aggressive. They like sample Earth, Wind and Fire and stuff like that. And it's just very light, the production, but very funky. And they're kicking all sorts of conscious Afrocentricity. And Grand Puba is one of the greatest rappers of all time, in my opinion, at least from that album. And he's just really, really incredible. And I've listened to it a lot when I was a young adult. I bought that album, I think, in 1999 or 2000. I skipped school, took the train, went downtown, and I bought 5 albums. One for All, Gangstar, Daily Operation, and some others that I don't remember.
You were so much closer than me. You know what I bought in 2000? I bought Dysfunction by Stained and Something Human by Fuel. So you were buying Brand Nubian albums. Fucking Caleb was bringing in Mingus albums to show and tell. And I'm buying Fuel albums. So I needed to excuse myself from the table right now. But
no, I feel that I got into hip hop late. When I was 15 years old, I really started taking it seriously. But before that, I was more like into alternative rock. But as I expanded, I got into some stuff, Portishead, and then Massive Attack, and then Massive Attack liner notes said they liked Rakim. That was a huge influence on the album. So I listened to Rakim, Paid in Full, and then it goes on. That's how I expanded to hip hop, and eventually it was like, fuck this alt rock shit. Just gonna listen to hip hop because there were so many classics to discover, and I would spend all my money getting these CDs.
I mean, shout out to buying Massive Attack CDs, because buying No Protection, Massive Attack versus Mad Professor was a big step into me getting into dub, because I just thought that was a normal ass album, and I bought it and I'm like, is this CD broken? What's wrong with this shit? And then, flash forward to 5 years later, and I'm all into King Tubby and Lee Scratch Perry and so I'm imagining that. I think that probably has to be one of the most returned CDs of all time.
Just speaking of which, that Charles Mingus story is a true story. That is a real thing. That I was like maybe 4, and the story in Diction, I don't know if you heard, but it's my dad. I grew up on jazz a lot, basically. Because my dad played it in the house all the time when I was really young, and all I knew was like jazz records, really, for in my very, very, very young years. So for show and tell, in preschool one day, I brought in Charles Mingus's for show and tell.
Wow.
which is like the most dweeb thing you can ever do.
No, it's the coolest thing.
No, that's like so cool. Like, although I'm picturing you doing it in like a little bow tie.
I wasn't that bad. I can imagine, like, you know, I think when I was like 4, I had like very like, you know, beat up pants and, you know, sneakers and stuff. I was like 2 foot nothing because I was really short when I was a kid. So, yeah, that's my dad always tells me that the teacher, because I don't remember this anymore, but the teacher like talked to him when he picked me up at the end of the day and was like, "So, Charles Mingus, huh?" Like, how do you get into that?
It'd be better if the teacher was like, "So, you couldn't have given him Black Saint and the Sinner Lady, huh? Why you giving him this mainstream shit?"
Well, that's the thing about is the jazz that I listened to when I was super young was like mostly like cool and hard bop stuff like that. Stuff that was like pretty. I mean, this is
it'd be great if the teacher was just like, "All right, pussy," and then he puts on "Out to Lunch."
Give him what's the other Dolphy album with the it's
Out to Lunch.
Out there.
Out there. Yes, out there.
Out to Lunch.
Okay.
Yeah. Out there.
Well, there's a few.
He just puts on like fucking like Atlantis by Sun Ra. Makes the whole class sit through that.
But
Hey, give this guy Ascension.
It was with Rate Your Music that I got more into jazz. Like, yes, I was into jazz, but in the first few years of Rate Your Music, well, at least when I was on it, the top albums of the 60s every year was a lot of times jazz albums. And that's how I got into Mingus, Black Saint and the Sinner Lady, which is still a favorite from the site. But I had some classic jazz albums, but I never heard of that one. And when I listened to it, I was like, wow, this is so fucking amazing. And yeah, that's how I got. But then I like that the site became more of a hip hop reference. It took a lot of years to build the database up and everything. And but like early on, like it had very of a raucous attitude of rapping is not like art and that sort of is like Trey J would make a thread saying like, these Bob Dylan lyrics aren't so great, like compare this to like Nas, and he's really not saying much. Nas is a lot more like prolific. And obviously he got shit on by everyone, but I think he had a point that like, yeah, you might have to take this seriously.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you and our guest next week did a lot of the legwork in getting hip hop taken seriously on the site. Because some of those like pre 2010, especially pre 2005 reviews of some hip hop albums are pretty rough stuff.
Yeah, I think. I mean, we kind of had this discussion. I had this discussion kind of in the chat a few months ago, where it was like, you just back in like 2009, like or even earlier, like you kind of want to erase that bit of history from the site because it's hard to recommend people the site and just don't read a lot of the reviews. Just don't do it. Don't do it from a lot of the old
says reviews. Like hottest album covers. Don't read it. Just don't read it.
Any comment box on an album by a woman, just stay away.
Oh, Lana Del Rey put out a single, 10,000 comments. No,
don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, well, every site is gonna have.
No, of course.
That is true. It's just weird how some comment boxes on the site are like somebody just transposed the worst, most cancerous parts of YouTube and dropped them into RYM.
Yeah, but before there were no comment boxes, and this stuff would be in the review boxes instead.
That is true. Shout out to Horb.
You just have to pick. You just have to pick your poison, I guess. I feel like you guys have. This is a different discussion, but I think it relates. But you guys have sort of lamented like a lot of the site having a lot of younger people now. But I actually think that's been key for the site's
Yeah.
evolution and longevity because attitudes are different now. So younger people come in and they're like, oh yeah, there should be like 5 hip hop albums in the top 15 ever. Like it's different, you know?
Yeah, I'm not so much lamenting that. I think that's more on his end because he has to deal with all of the database issues that come with that. Not so much me. I mean, I only really lament it when it comes to shit posting and that type of thing, which just clogs up the works. Like that. Yeah.
The
I also haven't visited
is annoying.
I also haven't used the boards in a few years, so I guess that doesn't affect me.
I'm not just referring to shit posting in that way, and I don't want to get too bogged down in this because this could not be of any interest to anybody. But it's more just like when it's like, okay, the fucking Peppa Pig album, we're gonna meme that 5 stars, like that type of shit. Where it's just like, okay, guys,
hey, it's the RYM version of the Stoink stonks.
It's a lot of 4chan.
Yeah, Channer shit. Like, I mean, and honestly, some of these people are way too old to be doing it. But yeah, just to, I guess, wrap up, I feel like we've talked most about Mr. Hood, but yeah, it's good. It's not my favorite, but it's good. I think you have to come into it with realistic expectations about when it was released, where Doom was at the time. He's not Doom, he's Zev. I'm not as high on it as Diction, obviously, but I think it's a very good album. It's fun. There are, like, the way he fleshes out concepts on here, I think kind of predicts where he would go later in his career, even if it's not as articulated and the flow is completely different and the approach is completely different. So I think if you're really hardcore into Doom, it's worth hearing. You just need to expect that it's not the same rapper. Not the same person, not the same rapper.
The rapping style is a lot different, but I think you have to approach it as a 1991 East Coast album. If you are into 1991 East Coast shit, this is something you might enjoy, rather than coming in as a MF Doom fan, which makes me realize this is probably why it's rated a little bit lower than his other stuff, because it doesn't sound like Doom. It sounds like Native Tongues, Zev Love X.
Right. And looking at what you're talking about, the rating, it is 23 for the year on hip hop charts. Between the Digital Underground album from that year, it's below that, and above an NWA album that I hate.
You hate it? It's my favorite album.
I do not like that album. Easy sucks on it. Easy is like way too much Easy on that album, dude. Like, and I like Easy, but that's like I do not like that album.
Wait, Diction, that's your favorite rap album?
Well, I say that I gave it 5 stars.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay, I gave it 2.5. That's a 5. Like, it's just I really like the production on it, but honestly, in terms of NWA, Easy is my 3rd favorite.
I think MC Ren is absolutely great on it.
Ren's great. Cube's great.
Cube's not on it. That's how long ago you listened to it.
That is wow. You just completely smacked the shit out of me on that.
Cube left in 1990.
Fuck.
I do remember.
I'm looking at the track list now, and you're right.
But honestly, because for that album, the production,
I think I'm actually remembering Cube's verses from. Is this the year that Death Certificate came out, or was that next year? No, Death Certificate came out this year. Yeah, I'm thinking of fucking Death Certificate when I think of Cube's verses. Because
Cube made No Vaseline in response to him being dissed on that album.
On this, yeah.
Because they throw a lot of shots at Cube, and Cube was like, okay, I left the group sort of on good terms.
And
but then they shoot them out. But that album is a Prince Paul album in concept, like with the skits, the way every song is intertwined together, and it makes a really complete piece. And even Prince Paul said that this is better than anything that I've done as far as concept album goes.
Okay, so, I will give it another shot. Clearly, like I listened to it for when I reviewed it, and I love the production on it. I remember that. Clearly, I don't remember it as well as I thought, because I thought Ice Cube's Death Certificate verses were actually on this album.
I can understand people being thrown off by everything on it. Like the lyrics are very over the top, exaggerated, like cartoonish gangster. Like and Sorcerer Compton was more like streetwise gangster. So that album was it took away that part, but it's just over the top, and the production is a mixture of like Bomb Squad with the upcoming G-Funk sound, so sort of the middle ground of it. Like it's really one of the best.
Yeah, it's transitional from like 80s Dre / Bomb Squad, and it's the most like Bomb Squad-y thing he would do to Chronic Doggy style Dre.
Yeah, it's very transitional, but I like the production better on that album than on Chronic and Doggy Style. That's how much I like it.
Really? I mean, Chronic, I feel like production-wise, I've burnt out on a little bit, just that it feels like I've heard it so much that but there's no denying that it's super important and good. Like,
yeah, it's amazing.
But everybody used those samples so much, like that became. But that's because it was so important and so good at what it did.
Mm.
Like,
but for another thing about that time is like hip hop was being so great that everybody was in competition with each other. So just looking at the list, it reminded me. Low End Theory is the #1 hip hop album rated of 91. Yeah. When Dre heard Low End Theory, he was like, "Oh my god, they're fucking kicking my ass." So that's when he made Chronic in response to that. So
I mean, looking at the top 10, dude, you've got Low End Theory, Death Certificate, Breaking Atoms, De La Soul is Dead, Organized Confusion, Step in the Arena, Mr. Scarface is Back, which I haven't heard, which is on me, Apocalypse 91, OG Original Gangster, which I haven't heard, that's on me, and the Ghetto Boys album, which I heard once, and I haven't rated. So that's the top 10. And the 8 that I've heard are fucking amazing. I'd have them all at 9s.
Those are all great. Those are all great records. I think the Organized Confusion record, it's not my favorite, but it might be my like second or third, depending on the day from that year.
I mean, I think like Low End Theory is one of my favorite albums of all time. Yeah, for sure. Death Certificate, Cube just murders that so hard that I thought his verses were the best thing on an album he wasn't even on. Yeah, Breaking Atoms doesn't get enough credit, I don't think.
Large Professor is one of the best producers. My favorite from that year, I think it's De La Soul.
By the way, when Diction just went,
I have a hot take. I think that Balloon is better than De La Soul is Dead.
Well, I accept your hot take. It's not that hot.
I feel. Oh wow, it's rated higher on the site.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
I also agree with your take. That's my favorite De La.
I really thought that Dead was. I mean, I know it was considered like non-commercial and not as good at 3 Feet High as the time, but I thought Is Dead was.
Oh no, it was not well received, that album. For them, they were abandoning 3 Feet High, which got good reviews.
I know at the time it wasn't, but I thought it was kind of like thought of with time as like their mature sophomore album that got like, and then Balloon was thought of as like indulgent, like it had like the jazz interlude on it and stuff, and it was just kind of seen as like a dour, like, that Stakes was seen as like that. Is Dead and that Stakes was seen as like them coming back to form, and then they fell off after that. Although Grind Date again doesn't get enough love. I've always maintained that.
Well, fall off is a big word. I think they're still good, just not.
I meant like
classic.
I meant in terms of how other people see them. I don't think they necessarily fell off. In terms of got bad, although in terms of relevance and stuff, like, yes, I think that they're not as relevant as they were in the 90s, but that's true of most 90s acts. So.
No, but there's good arguments for all 4 albums. The first 4, there's like, they have each a very individual thing that it does better than the other 3. And for me, Is Dead is the one, but I love them all. Like it's one of my favorite groups for sure.
Yeah, I think I like my ratings on this, because I think I would do Is Dead at a 4.5. I would do Is Dead at a 9, and Balloon at a 9 or a 10, and I haven't even rated or catalog Stakes, but Stakes would be a 9. and I would have 3 Feet High and an 8, just because that's again my time bias, where it's certain things that I hate when people say things are of their time as a criticism, but sometimes I feel that way though, where it's just like I wasn't there, so certain things do sound dated to me, and that I.
But for the 3 Feet High, I bought it in '98, which I was 15 years old, and some of my friends, when they heard it, like it was a 10-year-old record. But when they heard it, they were just fucking going nuts on how advanced it sounded. Like the production on that album really aged well, at least from a late '90s perspective. Like we were mind blown on like how good these beats were, and even if you compare it to other '89 albums, it's the future of hip hop at that time, because the drums on it would go in that direction come 91 and even 92, because you still had a lot of people doing the bomb squad, like faster BPMs instead of the hard boom bap drums. Yeah, I think that, not to say that it's only important historically, but just for reference, like how 10 years later for us it sounded like, oh my god, there's nothing out there like this.
Have you listened to Prince Paul's series with Mike Eagle? What happened?
No, not yet.
You really need to listen to that, dude. Yeah. Paul is hilarious. Like, first of all, Paul should have his own podcast separate from Mike Eagle, although Mike Eagle is great at doing podcasts. But the story, like, he's really good at like telling his life story, all the stories about albums and stuff. He's got funny anecdotes, and he explains like the musical background behind stuff. Like, I think you would really enjoy it.
Oh, that's for sure, because he's one of my favorite. That's how it shows my email address. After buying 3 Feet High and Rising.
Yeah, when I was getting Optimal to add you to the call, I said Diction has the most Diction ass email address.
It caught me off guard. Like, it was funny, but in a good way. In a good way. I was like, yeah.
Speaking of the topic of the episode, I think that Doom only worked with Prince Paul once. With a shout out to friend of the podcast, Celestiphone, worked with this Paul Barman. Paul Barman and MF Doom on. We'll get to this on the 3rd episode, I believe, because it's a leftovers episode. High Guacamole.
You forgot one song.
Well,
The Gas Face is produced by Prince Paul.
Well, I said Doom, not Zev.
I got you. Clever.
Nice call. But Doom was anyway. So he was called Zev Love X, but his friends called him Doom because Daniel Doomele sounds like Doom. So he was always called Doom. They just called Zev Love X because that was like the X-Clan thing to do at that time. Yeah, his name comes from the era. But among his friends,
I forget where I heard this. I mean, I think it's just like a common knowledge thing, but it was like everybody was trying to be pro-black at the time, and so throwing the X at the end of your name, like Malcolm, was just like a thing you did. So, but so speaking of pro-black, KMD's sophomore album, Black Bastards, a little too pro-black for Elektra, apparently.
Yeah, well, the story is that some people got the promo album with the cover, and they didn't think it was proper, and Elektra didn't want to like fight for it. Like, instead of backing up their artists, there is like, oh my god, there's criticism around this. We don't want the controversy. This is not our biggest selling act, so that's why it wasn't released by Elektra at the time.
Now, was Dante Ross still there at this point, or so he didn't go to bat, or maybe he did, but
he probably did, but he's not the one that
he's not calling the shots at this point, and like there was definitely the backlash. I think this was around maybe around the time that Ice-T released Cop Killer with Body Count. Like there was Definitely.
Exactly.
And obviously, like, Zev Love X and KMD aren't Ice-T and Body Count, but to a certain subset of the music industry and the listening populace, it's all the same shit, right?
Yeah, well, the cover was actually like anti-racist, but they saw it as racist. So
right, all they saw was a lynching scene.
So they couldn't like understand the meaning of the artwork, so they just took it to face value, which okay.
And the artwork is super clever too. The hangman motif. Like, I think that, and also if you think about it in terms of, I think I cover this. Did I actually publish my review or not? But where it's like, it's the evolution of, you have the Mr. Hood character, and then on Black Bastards, they're playing hangman. They're hanging the Mr. Hood character.
Yes, but like before we get into the album, we have to get into Sub Rock's death.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, which is obviously what most shaped Doom's career trajectory as well. Because, I mean, between that and KMD, like the album getting shelved, those were the two motivating factors that led to Zev becoming Doom.
Yeah, because they were recording the album when he got killed, or whatever the story is, because there's different sides to it. So that was in 93. So after his brother died, Doom went back into the studio to finish the album. Like Black Bastard wasn't like stopped when Sub Rock died. Like half of it was recorded, but then he's like, okay, I'm gonna finish this for my brother. And then they got dropped, which is even more like of a death blow. It's like, so he went back and, well, it didn't come out, but without these events, we probably wouldn't have got Operation Doomsday and everything that came after. Like, it's an important part of his career, these bad events.
And I think that, as unfortunate as it was, and obviously it was a river of shit that he had to swim through for years of his life, but this, in a way, the way that this album was suppressed and then ultimately revived and distributed kind of gives it a cachet that makes people seek it out. And like Optimal sought this one out first. I think that speaks to, like, the unreleased album always has more cachet than the released album.
Yeah, but in the book, Check the Technique.
Great book, by the way. I love that book.
They talk about like the makings of classic albums, and they put that one in. So,
and I mean, we disagree on this, obviously, because you said that if you could save one over Mad Villain, aside from Mad Villainy, you'd save Mr. Hood. I think Black Bastards is superior. It's I did not know that I thought it was finished and shelved and Sub Rock died. You corrected me on the chronology here. I did not know that Doom went in and finished it after Sub Rock was, murdered, or whatever the story was there. It feels cohesive. It feels like as much of a complete concept as Mr. Hood to me, actually. Although, like, tonally, it does go a little more all over the place, because I listened to Mr. Hood once doing my homework for this. I listened to Black Bastards twice, because I enjoy Black Bastards a lot more on a it sounds weird saying I enjoy Black Bastards. Like, it doesn't really roll off the tongue like that. But,
be careful how loud you say that.
my take on Black Bastard, it's a great album, no doubt. But it's not as unique during its time frame. Okay, we're taking it as a 1994 album. It sounds a lot like 94 albums. The production is not as, yes, we said that Mr. Hood was native tongues and all that, but now it's not like De La Soul. Like, I cannot switch these beats one for one, but Black Bastards, I can take a lot of 94 albums and just switch the beats for one another, and it's the exact same style. So for me,
that album, that's a little harsh. What albums are you referring to?
Well, it was just like a sort of post Pete Rock DITC sound of 93, 94 with the horns and everything. That sort of, when I listen to it, I feel like, yeah, this is that sound. And it was fine that he was going for that sound, because that's what everybody did. And 94 obviously contains a lot of the best hip hop albums of all time. But like when I listen to the beats, I was like, oh, it doesn't have that uniqueness to it. Not to say that the beats aren't great. That's not a criticism on the quality. It's just on the uniqueness.
I guess I agree with you. I mean, it's not. Although I don't find Mr. Hood as unique as you do, I suppose, because again, like when I listened to it, I just immediately got hit with De La. I got hit with Tribe. This one, I can't think of one-to-one comparisons like you can. I don't think I have as much to call upon as you do. Like I don't really hear DITC, but I can now that you mention it. I do. Yeah, I thought you would enjoy it more because I think the drums are a lot more prevalent on this one.
I mean, I do enjoy it. I'm just talking about why is Mr. Hood sort of more unique and more because I can't replace Mr. Hood with another album, but Black Bastard I sort of can. But then again, the rapping is not something that others would do similarly.
And I think that what's unique about this for a Doom fan is that this is close. Well, I feel like this is more of a bridge from Zev to Doom than the first one.
Yeah.
Like, listen to the if you're listening chronologically, you have pure Zev on the first one. This one feels like, and this makes more sense given what you said about how it was assembled. This is where Zev is transitioning into Doom. Like, in terms of he's getting angrier. And this is also the most directly angry, pointed Doom has been on record, I think. Like, later he would make societal points. Like, think about something like Strange Ways. Like, he's saying something very directly critical, but he couches it in metaphor. He writes something that you have to think about. Here, he's still doing a 90s rapping sort of thing where he's making a point and telling you it, which is something that Doom didn't really do. He was a supervillain. He was elusive.
Right.
So this is Zev writing shit that Doom would write, but he's still rapping like Zev.
Yeah, the voice. But also, if we're going chronologically, there was one single released. I won't say the title.
Yeah. That's,
what up? I
mean, that's the song I like the most on the record. So
it's hard for you to discuss it, right?
So that's and the rest. It came out after signing to Fondolem. 4 more songs were released on an EP, Black Bastards, Roughs and Rare, and then it was released independently in 2000 and in 2001 on Subverse Music, which was the label of Big Just from Company Flow. So a lot of the New York underground really took Doom sort of under their wing, like by releasing the Elektra records. But like on a more underground distribution.
Well, I mean, you were saying that it was hard to find Doomsday up there. It was hard to find Doomsday down here, too. That record kept going out of print. Like, I didn't really search for it at the time, but even when it was, like, it took Stone's Throw releasing that 10 times with, like, different, like, fucking Peanut Butter Wolf needs a new Tesla type fucking bonuses before it really got back into circulation. So.
No, it was, I bought it on the internet much later on, like 2008 or something. But yeah, there's a lot of records that I could never find in Canada. Like I have to
ask, keep talking about Canadian records. Do you own the Canadian Supreme Clientele?
Yes.
I love
better. It's better than the retail version. It's almost the same, but you have.
I mean, it has weird changes to it, and it's interesting. Like, I actually think it is probably better too. Like, the sequencing changes make it a little better.
Well, I didn't know I had the Canadian different version forever. It's just
I didn't even know there was like a different Canada version until I checked the issues on RYM, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then.
It took me years to find, and then I downloaded the US version, And it's like, no, this feels wrong. This shouldn't be there. This shouldn't be there. Yeah. So Supreme Clientele. Yeah, that was quite the record. And it came out at a weird time because in 1999, Wu-Tang solos were kind of on the weaker side. You had like the Raekwon Immobility, You God.
Well, you know why it was called immobility, right? Because he couldn't move units.
Yes, good. But it's like so when Ghostface was about to release his second album, I had no hype for it. I was like, okay, yeah, another Wu-Tang record. We are getting these every 2 months now, and they're all like mediocre. So, but then like the reviews were all like over the top over the album. So yeah, I bought it and like, wow. And that's when Ghostface became the best member. Well, not to everyone, but he sort of proved that he could be like the best, because before it was like ODB and Method Man that were considered like the best Wu-Tang rappers. But then with Supreme Clientele, the discussion changed a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay. I want to go back on something on Black Bastards. Just talking about on the production side, how does KMD work? It's produced by KMD. That's what it says, but it's not Sub Rock making all the beats. It was
that was I was going to ask you guys that actually, because I've only seen him. I think he's only credited on like a third of the beats or something.
Yeah. When did Doom become Metal Fingers? Like, when did Doom actually start like getting behind the boards?
Well, no, he was making beats on Mr. Hood, and he was making beats on Black Bastard, but it was sort of a like, I don't have a brother myself, but there's sort of a synergy between the family usually. Like, you can work together and create together. So there was like
some family.
No, but you know what I mean.
It's just weird because the KMD beats, like, I can kind of see how the skeletons of them evolve, but even Doomsday, the thing about it was, when I was listening to Doomsday for this podcast, I was thinking it was like, the reason that Doomsday didn't initially resonate with me, and I'm not trying to jump into Doomsday, we can go back to Black Bastards, was that I'd heard a lot of these so much from listening to the Special Herbs tapes and stuff, like these beats, that they felt a little stale to me by the time I got to Doomsday, because I was working backwards. But yeah, like, in terms of like these KMD beats, like, and that's why it was so weird to hear them on the Special Herbs box set, was like, I can hear where they're coming from, but they did not feel like Metal Fingers beats. Like, the construction's the same, but the source material, the context feels different almost.
It's different eras too.
Yes, it's also different eras. Like, he's very much fitting himself into that early 90s era. And then Black Bastards is much, like you said, it's very nice. Mr. Hood's 1991, this is 1994. So you're right. Like, it's very much of its time. But yeah, you're right. Like,
it moved obvious so reasons, fast.
There's a lot of sub-rock on this.
Like, for now, I don't feel like, starting from like the 2000s, hip-hop takes 5 years to move forward. What it took 2 years in the late 80s and 90s to move forward. Like, as far as production sounds, we have so many different branches now in hip-hop, but like, the difference between a 91 beat and a 93 beat is like so big. Meanwhile, a 2010 beat and a 2015 beat, it is different, but not to the same degree. So everybody was adapting.
I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, but I think that maybe, I don't know. Well, I don't think it's that dramatic, but I think that, the genre was evolving at a faster pace then, but I still think that there are dramatic differences over the years now. It's just you have to search harder in different regional pockets now. It's again back to the whole dissemination of information thing we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, which I feel like has a impact on all music. I mean, some genres have hardly evolved at all. You know, if you're looking at genres that were once the most popular staples.
Right. I don't think there's too much evolution in post-grunge right now.
No, I don't think that the majority of rock music has changed. And this is not even a critique on rock music. I just don't believe it to be outside of maybe some styles of, and I'm ill-equipped to talk about more things that are in the range of
I'll tell you that
and those subgenres.
Trash. I'll tell you that.
Oh no! If we're just talking about like a lot of the more prevalent styles of rock, yeah, I don't think there's been much of an evolution over the course of the last 10 years or so. I think hip hop is one of a few genres to me that is consistently evolving. Maybe not as dramatically as I said before, because I think electronic music is another one of those genres. And I think the similarities between, people who are way more talented than myself, like producers, have said this, but like electronic and hip hop, I think are very similar, and there are parallels there. And I think they've both evolved.
Well, hip hop is technically electronic; it just has a different drum sound.
Yeah. See, but good point. I'm bad with music theory type stuff. So
you use words so good.
It's weird because I'm a writer. I'm supposed to be able to do that.
It was tying up to, like, if you compare Mr. Hood to Black Bastards, they sound like two different production styles.
I would agree with that too. Yeah, for sure.
And that's 3 years difference. And it's like way different. Just like an 88 record with a 91 record is like way different. And if you compare 85 record like Run DMC to Public Enemy, It Takes a Nation, way different again. Like it was going like leaps every few years.
Well, you would be much better equipped to talk about this than me, but I feel like there was hyperspeed leaps from disco rap to 85 rap to 88 rap. Like I feel like that was hyperspeed. But then from 88, it was a more gradual evolution. And then from 91, it was more gradual evolution. It was still a faster evolution because it's still a nascent genre. Like, I still feel like even now, it's still evolving faster than even jazz. Like, jazz at this point feels like it's, like, encased in amber compared to hip-hop.
Yeah, I guess it's...
Unfortunately, like
it's
just on a larger scale. I'm sure people are doing really exciting things in jazz, and they are. Like, I mean, I really like that one thread on the board right now that's talking about good jazz in the past 50 years, which is a very broad scope, by the way. But people are suggesting stuff in the past 10 years, which I like. Hope Kosa gets in that thread. Shout out to
one
Ryan.
of my favorite albums from last year, Rob Mazurek. It's unlike any jazz I've ever heard. So it stands out. You're right. Your general sentence is more true, but there is still possibility to push it forward, but like not in leaps like hip hop did or is still doing.
That was just like, so I guess to go back to what we were talking about before even we were recording, it's like a child learning to, it walks, and it's like, you're old and it doesn't do shit, and then all of a sudden it's walking and it's crawling, it's walking. Like that's what hip hop was doing for a while. Like
the production evolution in hip hop is a lot related to the equipment available at the time.
That is true. And for all the shit that the 80s get for being soulless and electronic, that's a double-edged sword. It worked badly for rock that was trying to adapt to that. It led to a lot of soulless, cold bullshit from people that were probably just going to produce soulless, cold bullshit anyway, whether or not they were dealing with analog or electronic. But it opened up a lot of avenues for people that were actually willing to be creative.
Yeah, like house music and techno music.
They both techno first and foremost.
Yeah, they both evolved at the same time as hip hop with similar equipment to move forward. But the introduction of samplers in 1986. That's what moved hip hop to the sound that we know today, sort of. But it went back to its funk roots because it was now being able to produce funk sounds with the samplers. And as the samplers got better, well, so did the productions. Like 1991, I think, sort of defines a lot of the 90s sound. While 94 is a little bit harder, but like the sort of foundation of the 90s is a lot in that year.
I mean, I think that Paul's Boutique is really foundational for a lot of the artier stone throw shit like 20 years past.
Yeah, it's weird because that record is, I think it's more appreciated now because
it was commercial failure, right? Like I read the 33 1/3 on that, and it was definitely like.
But no, not only a commercial failure, but there's a lot of racism in music. Like at least from my point, like you had say, you had kids. I don't like rap, but Beastie Boys is good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, I had there was an alt rock station around here, and they would play no rap except for Beastie Boys and Eminem.
Yeah,
why? Weird. Why? Huh?
No, but that's the thing. So Beastie Boys fans embrace that album, but for a lot of black hip hop fans, Beastie Boys weren't good rappers because they would rap like they do, which is very unique to them.
Go on the line, like, oh, stir fry you in my block, like, you know. But it's effective for what it's trying to convey in a lot of circumstances.
There's a lot of, I think, correlation with their style and perhaps the more abstract styles that we see popular today. That they seem to be taking more from like rapping off beat or like with weird.
Well, that's why I mentioned Paul's though, is because I feel like there's a direct correlation between that and Doom's future style, not necessarily Black Bastards, but like Food, that type of like Doom forward style.
I always thought the production on Paul's was more influential than the rapping, but I'm just speaking from a pure guess.
Well, the production is something
the
special.
Style on Paul's, like not like the technical style of rapping, because Doom's obviously like streets ahead of all of them, but like in terms of just like coming up with weird references for the sake of references, that was something they did before Doom. You know,
but it also marks like it takes a nation, Paul's Boutique, 3 Feet High and Rising, Fear of a Black Planet. These songs would contain 5-6 samples or more. And as in 91, the lawsuits came in, you can't sample without giving credit and everything like that. So it kind of stunted the growth of mega sample songs, like with a lot of samples, and partly in reason why it moved forward to more the more simple boom bap sound, like of DJ Premier, for example, which has 1 or 2 samples in it, so it would be more possible financially because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to worry about going to court to clear something. So
so that it kind of forced everyone to go into that direction without the craziness. Now we have Bandcamp, so people can do it again, but no one's really approaching that either.
I mean, I guess it's just a risk versus reward sort of thing. You're going to make enough money off this song to deal with the headache if you have a sample that you think can't miss. Or do you think they're going to notice it or not?
Oh,
like,
they're going to notice
the radar or not. It all depends. Like, eventually you get successful enough, someone's going to notice, and they're going to call the lawyers up. But
yeah, I think.
What was the most obnoxious, egregious case? I think it was Tracy Chapman sued Nicki Minaj over a song she didn't even use.
Yep, that was the didn't Nicki Minaj lost that case, right?
She lost the case, and I thought that was. I mean, like, it was a really weird precedent. I mean, I guess it's not precedent because she settled it, as some really annoying guy on ROAM pointed out to me. Shout out to that guy. But still, it was like, so it was leaked. So it wasn't actually used, but it was, I'm making air quotes here, leaked. Clearly, her team gave it to somebody on the radio. So it's like, it's just all so stupid. Like, but legally, you have to have a precedent, right? I guess.
But a lot of the people, they just need money too. It's like when your career is not going so well, somebody samples your music. Oh, I can make money off this. I need to feed my family here, or I need to pay my rent or whatever. I don't know Tracy Chapman's finances, but a lot of the times it's not even being against hip hop. It's just give me money.
I mean, I think the most obnoxious case I can think of in recent times was Don Henley got Nostalgia Ultra pulled off streaming because of American Wedding. Nostalgia Ultra was free.
Yeah.
And not making money off it.
No,
that's another reason to despise the Eagles' existence.
But no, the EPMD sampled the Eagles, and Rakim sampled the Eagles, and they didn't sue.
Any song that samples the Eagles is going to be better than the source material.
True.
Oh no, it's actually Beastie Boys and Paul's Boutique. It uses that sample too. It's a song on their '79 album, which sucks. But that one song,
you didn't need to clarify.
No, but that one song, it's got such
a football team. They suck.
It's got such a hip hop beat that it just screams hip hop, and I'm sure all these producers back then when they heard it was like, wow, what a beat! So they just sampled it. But like, yeah, before '91,
you made it a hot beat. I made it a hot song.
I'm pretty sure the first case of these was the Gilbert O'Sullivan thing about Alone Again for Biz.
Yeah, Biz was the first one. And that's why De La Soul is Dead.
It was a Biz song. And how can you sue Biz Markie, dude? He lives in the parking lot of the Albee Square Mall. His house is the Albee Square Mall. And you're suing him.
God. You're also suing Jeff Weiss's Twitter account. That people confuse him with Biz Markie all the time. I swear to God, he at least quote tweets like one reply a month that thinks he's actually Biz Markie.
I was wondering why he was using the Biz face.
I don't know what the basis of the handle is, but he gets it all the time where it's like, is this Biz Markie? Gosh. They'll be like, whoa, Biz Markie does rap writing? Or something like that.
Yo, Biz, sign me a signed booger, yo.
Why is Biz writing about West Coast hip hop?
Yeah. Oh, Biz is actually a big record collector.
Damn, Biz really hates Post Malone.
I'm sure that was a reply. I'm positive.
Anyway, so
Post Malone just sitting in his fucking Jaguar, being like, "Yo, why is this guy who picks his boogers really hate me so much?"
Oh my God!
Probably has no idea who Biz is.
I think overall,
that's very true. By the way, I'm sure that Post Malone has
absolutely no idea.
Logic does though. Your favorite rapper, he certainly ripped him off on Supermarket.
It's true.
I haven't listened to it.
I mean, you don't really.
We had a great episode once where Travis read some of Logic's great novel.
It was. I think that was the only
season
one,
2. Yeah,
the only one that was really lost to time that I really miss because it was great.
Yeah, Logic is definitely the new Chuck Palahniuk. Up Chuck Palahniuk.
Gosh, he Logic definitely absolutely stands
Well, to take it back to the topic of the episode, I do need to listen to that Doom thing he did, I guess.
Oh, it was. It's not. The timing is weird, but he started working on that before Doom died.
So he says.
No, because I found some posts of like October talking about Doc D. So it wasn't like, okay, Doom died, I'm just gonna buy Doom. But it's very much inspired by Doom. Like it's like food. A lot of the album is like
it's like mostly skits, right?
Yeah, it's skits, but the beats are like it's like got that mechanical like Doom beat thing going on. So it's entertaining, but it's not. I don't think it's as focused as some of the records I like from him.
What are your guys like? Where would you guys put Black Bastards in the like Doom discography? Like, are you putting it up there, or are you putting it? I don't think Diction is, but I don't know, Patrick, your thoughts.
I mean, I'd put it above Mr. Hood, but I'd still put it below Doomsday and everything that's
solo stuff. Yeah,
I would put it below Ghidorah, below Matt Villainy, Mouse and the Mask, maybe. Yeah, it's one of his lesser great albums, if we can put it that way. Like, it's great, but he's got a lot of great ones too. Like Victor Vaughn's.
I mean, I think it's more interesting as like considering the circumstances of its release and of its making, considering that he made it essentially in two parts, that it's more interesting artistically in terms of his creation than of its ultimate final form. But I think it's like musically it's more interesting to me than Mr. Hood just because of what he's doing. I guess I think the 94 sounds more interesting than the 91 sound, but I like both. I think both are like that was going to be my final question on the podcast. So fuck you for stepping on my final question. But like where you place the KMD stuff in terms of Doom's like ultimate discography. But I think that
it's better than Born Like This.
Yeah, Born Like This we're going to talk about a lot more in the future because I think that album is a bum rap. But it gets a bum rap, but it's also I understand all the criticisms of it. Like,
but it came around the times that there were rumors that he was dead. So it felt
like why he chose the title, although there is the whole Bukowski theme on there that justifies the title.
No, but it felt like it was an album from a dead rapper where they were taking scraps and putting it out in
there's a lot of old shit on there, like Angels and
so there wasn't there like a Donuts beat.
Yeah, there's like two. He does Gazillionaire, the Donuts beat, Gazillionaire, and Lightworks. Lightworks probably being my least favorite thing on there because I just don't think that most Donuts beats are meant to be rapped over. Like,
I agree.
So
we'll get to Born Like This when we talk about it with the unofficial fifth member of the podcast, Trav's the unofficial fourth member of the podcast. So this guy's the fifth man, but we'll talk about it with him. But yeah, so I don't know. Black Bastards, I think, again, I agree with Diction. It's on the lower end of his great albums. It's still a great album. I recommend the Spotify Deluxe. It does have like vocal versions, which I never have any really use for because I'm not a DJ. I'm not making remixes of shit. But it does have the instrumentals, which I think are really cool to hear. It'd be nice to have instrumental versions of some of the stuff on Mr. Hood, but I don't think those exist.
No, not that I'm aware of anyway.
So, but yeah, I got like the Bastards. I think that I don't know what kind of dent it would have made had it been released. Honestly, like I don't think it would have really broken them out or anything.
No, it would not have stood out in the sea of 94 releases. There's a lot of very good albums from 94 that didn't make a mark because there can only be a certain amount of major albums here, like. So you can't have everyone blow up. So it does not feel like Illmatic, Ready to Die.
You got to think that this is the year that Illmatic and Ready to Die came out. So there's really only there's only so much room at the table. Didn't the Organized Confusion album come out this year too? So
Stress.
Yeah. It was Illmatic. It was Ready to Die. It was Stress. It was also Main Ingredient came out, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Blowout Cone,
which I
Planets.
like better than Mecca, I believe, on a production level at least. On a production level.
Diggable Planets. The Blowout Comb came out.
Oh yeah, Blowout Comb, one of the best albums ever.
But that flopped.
So
I don't understand why.
Just to show you
because
that
it was non-commercial as hell.
Yeah,
but the first album had Rebirth of Slick, which was like a pretty good single. Like it was a commercially viable, and Blowout Comb is like not.
Blowout Comb rejects like commercial aspirations entirely, for sure. Like even more than Balloon did. Balloon already got like 3 feet. I mean, I'm sorry, Dead already was like, oh, you guys are rejecting commercial shit. And then Balloon doubled down on that. And then I would say that Blowout Comb doubles down on what Balloon doubled down on already.
They rejected their own popularity, but they grew so much as artists in the meantime.
Yeah, I have a deep love for Blowout Comb. I think that's one of the best albums ever made.
It is. What surprised me is back when I first got them in the 90s or early 2000 anyway, I liked the first album better, but now I don't. But with time, Blowout Comb just I really learned to appreciate it more. And then when I go back to the first album, now it feels so immature compared to it.
I mean, it almost feels like Organics compared to Illadelph.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I skipped Do You Want More in that comparison, but I'm just trying to emphasize.
Yeah, because Do You Want More sounds like Organics.
Yeah, Do You Want More is like they refined Organics to like release, because Organics very much feels like studio jam, like a jam session among friends, and Do You Want More is like they form that into an album, but Illadelph is like actually a constructed artistic statement.
Yeah, so 94 was very stacked.
You had the Outkast debut. That's you had.
I'm just looking at East Coast. Because it was very segregated. Like
what's the Insane Clown Posse released this year?
They did actually.
I was gonna give. Well, I mean, J. Rue, Redman, Gangstar.
Oh yeah, there's a reference to How to Roll a Blunt on this, I believe, too. By Redman, which I thought actually like was on Muddy Waters, but apparently is like How to Roll a Blunt debut. Yeah, so that was cool to hear Doom quoting Redman.
I think There Is a Dark Side is top tier Redman.
Those first 3 Redman albums are just fucking untouchable.
Redman doesn't like There Is a Dark Side.
Interesting.
He doesn't like. I really feel like he doesn't like the first 2. Like Muddy. I mean, clearly likes Muddy Waters because he keeps trying to threaten to make a sequel to it, which he shouldn't do.
No, but yeah, it's weird that he has that opinion. But yeah, so that's something.
Honestly, I think that Redman did not make a whack album until Reggie.
What about Malpractice?
There were whack songs on it, but overall the good songs outweighed the whack songs.
Can we talk about the Malpractice cover art?
It's a choice.
We are the aficionados of cover art, right? That's our thing.
That is true. That is one of the things that people come to us for.
But when Malpractice came out, it was very badly received on the internet.
I mean, it was his worst album by far to that point.
Yeah.
Also, Red Gone Wild isn't very good either.
No, it's not good. I don't remember it because I only listened to it once. But it was. Yeah,
don't give it a second. You're fine. You're good. But
yeah, it's not very good.
Reggie sucks.
Yeah, that's it. I haven't even heard the Redman album from 2015 with an incredible cover art. That I'm staring at right now in a basement.
I didn't know this existed.
Oh my god! What? Redman? my guy, like you need to get like you're very close to New York. I know that Jersey probably is not like teeming with like people whose graphic design is their passion, but oh dude.
Did he do this himself?
Did his daughter do this?
Yeah, it's gonna be like when people were making fun of
on the cover.
when people were making fun of the Life of Pablo cover. When they're like, didn't you do this?
I love the pancake and syrup mixtape cover art.
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, the artwork is done by someone called Dom Dirty.
Well, he did him dirty.
Oh, that was
And he
walked right into that one.
he made such masterpieces as the chemistry files from Alchemist, Static Selector. Actually, his other covers are not so.
Selecta also needs to hire somebody else to do his fucking cover.
Okay, a Crime Apple. Aguardiente. Well, his good album with Big Ghost.
Aguardiente is an excellent album, by the way. I don't want to discourage people. Oh my god, the malpractice cover art. Oh
no, but
he's not fuck.
Yeah,
I tried to
cover art. I have notes.
God, the Red Gone Wild cover art too is also.
I mean, and also that totally not dated Girls Gone Wild reference.
Yeah,
in 2007.
2007.
Yeah, that was.
Redman was 37 when he made that album. 37. Oh my god.
I don't know who did the Redman cover. I cannot find. Oh, I got it.
Well, I think they probably scrubbed it. I was going to say, I think they tried to scrub that credit from the internet.
It's Todd James, who was a logo designer for The Source.
Well, I bet he doesn't have that job anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made Kid Rock, his debut, grits sandwiches for breakfast.
Well, now he's eating shit sandwiches for breakfast.
Iggy Pop Beat 'Em Up is also another.
Oh, so he's doing late period Iggy Pop album covers. That's a sign you're doing well.
Yeah, no, he hasn't had any recent covers.
That's surprising.
Sorry, he did Agala. Anyways,
oh my god!
So I think
I love how most discussions on this podcast inevitably go through us going through people's RYM pages and being like, "That cover art's ugly," and that cover art's ugly,
or just laughing at the audacity. Well, I mean, a lot of I was just on the '94 charts and I was looking at like a lot of the Memphis rap covers, and they're just all pictures of cassettes that came out in '94. So there's that end of the spectrum too.
What's the ugliest cover art we've talked about on this podcast? I want to say Gravy's Mayor Goonbar Goes to Africa.
What is?
Oh, what was the?
Oh, there's a rapper called Gravy.
Gravy, yeah.
Like
that cover was something. What were the Gucci covers we were looking at that were pretty crazy?
Most of them.
Yeah. Some of like the real niche Gucci mixtapes though, like the ones with like.
Oh, the Gooch. The Gooch is one of them for sure.
What about that Capadonna cover that we saw?
Capadonna made a video for Milk This Cow 20 years later after this. He decided to make a single out of Milk the Cow where he's like aggressively pouring milk.
Wait, where is this which Capadonna cover art?
No, it's not released yet.
Oh.
It's a new album he's working on, and it's got like a lion on it or something.
Because
Capadonna is trying to make the sequel to Tiger King. Capadonna has a lion in his apartment.
The cover arts for all of his albums are great. The one for the album.
Oh my god.
The one called Slang Prostitution.
Oh yeah, where he's like blowing on obviously Photoshop jewelry.
Yes, in front of like the Great Pyramids.
All right, can I throw a link? Yeah?
The Capitalized Project, where it's him trying to be like a mafia member.
I sent you the line.
Let's take a look.
Let's all.
It has to be the best ever.
I have to log into Instagram to see it. Wait,
no,
no, you just click the link.
Oh my told him this was a good idea? Dude,
This has to be
Animorph Capadonna as like Tarzan.
What's the deal with the eagle and the deer?
What?
I like how he still looks irritated somehow.
Also, is he? What is going
This
on?
reminds me of one of my favorite horrible bars ever, where my son, who Game calls up whenever he wants somebody to imitate whoever he's beeping with, said that he swings from trees. Call him Barzan.
It was posted on the day Doom died.
Oh my Christ!
I mean, I like how.
Oh, well, not on the day he died. On the day the news was announced. To go back to the episode topic.
Dude,
Are we
this
even
is
trying to go to the episode?
someone in the comments said, "You found the only tree in Staten Island."
This is wow. Okay, first of all, Wyatt and/or Ryan, whoever puts this
we
episode
have to put this in.
Yeah, Capadonna as Tarzan is the cover art for the episode.
Yeah.
Can we put an MF Doom mask on him?
This is incredible. Yeah, this is incredible. This is the best contribution a guest has made to like the album covers discussion for sure. This is great.
I'm surprised you guys didn't see it. It was like
I don't know. Yeah,
I've never seen anything. I've never seen anything like this cover.
He looks like he's constipated.
It's like what's that guy from it's like 98 from Nodima State. It was like a pen and pixel cover.
Big Bear.
Big Bear.
Yeah, Big Bear. That's it.
Yeah, he was doing things.
Yes, that's.
I mean,
that's
like one of the T-shirts I want to get made for the podcast is the Soulja Slim "Give It to Him Raw" cover, but with Connor Oberst from Bright Eyes as the instead of Soulja Slim wearing like a army helmet.
I think it's worse than the Big Bear cover. Like
it's definitely worse, dude. Like there's so many stylistic choices in this cover that I would just question.
You can't talk shit about the Big Bear cover art. It's that
Big
good.
Bear as like he's going for comedy. You know, the bears have cigars and stuff.
No, so Big Bear is self-aware. I don't know if Capadonna is self-aware.
He's not. He's obviously not.
He's Tarzan.
No, but random animals is like, oh, okay, because Tarzan, the jungle, you know? That I got it. Oh.
Yo, shout out to GOZ. How have you not reviewed Like, I cannot wait for the GOZ review of the GOZ review of Tarzan.
I'm waiting for the 0.5 because I read his Pillage review and he hates that one. So.
I know, and that's a good album.
Yeah, actually, Doom is a fan of the Pillage. I heard that on, there was numerous tributes, and one of his own boys was reminiscing on that period, especially around Doomsday, and they were saying that they were bumping the Pillage a lot together, and Doom loved that album.
I'm pretty sure I told this story on the podcast before, but I've never cleared out a house party before, harder than when I had the Pillage on and I didn't realize it. And the second song on the Pillage includes a skit about killing and raping people.
Yeah.
Ladies don't really like that skit. Ladies don't really like Capadonna either, just in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess an album better than The Pillage, according to most people, would be Operation Doomsday by MF Doom.
Yeah. So I think we can talk about Fondulum a little bit.
The label and Fondulum Fossils, which was
Lucy that I also didn't listen to, but I've heard in the past, which was... So, did he do Fondle and Fossils before Doomsday came out, or...?
No, that's when he closed the label. So, Fondle was Bobbito's label, who from the Stretch and Bobbito show, very popular in the 90s, like every rapper would go, and it would play in the middle of the night. People would make tapes. They would sell those tapes. It was like very key to New York hip-hop culture. So then Bobbito started his own label, Fondle, but it was supposed to be only vinyl, only singles. That's where the Juggernauts released their debut album on vinyl only. The CD came much later, re-release. And that's when Doom made his first appearance. And he was, I think he was living with Stretch Armstrong or either one of the two. And first single came out in 97. And that's when the MF Doom persona was born.
So this is how long after the album got dropped and Sub Rock died? Like 5 years?
3 years.
3 years, okay.
Well, the Operation Doomsday came out in 99, but singles started coming out in 97. So
what was the first single? Was it Tick Tick, or was it Rhymes Like Dimes, or
That Band Gastrol's A is the first single, and then you got Greenbacks Go With The Flow as the second single. Third single, The Mic, Red and Gold. So you had 7 songs released before the album.
Really? The ones I called weren't the ones that, was Rhymes Like Dimes a single? I thought Rhymes Like Dimes was a single.
Nope, it wasn't.
Wow. It sounds like it might have, his flow,
but it wasn't made to blow up. It was...
Oh, no. That's the thing about the album, is it feels very insular. That's the thing when I listen to it. It's I can't pick a single out of it. That's when you talk about singles coming out from this, I'm just what's the single here?
They were just for there was the stuff DJ Premier would buy. It was just hip hop DJs would buy this, and it wasn't for radio airplay or anything. It was just here's a dope 12-inch cut, and you can put that on your mixes or whatever. But there was no commercial idea when making at least from Bobbito's point of view, Fondle wasn't for the radio. It wasn't to make them popular. And you have a lot of people that came up on this label. You have Cage, his first single in 97, Cenobites.
No shit. Cenobites were on fucking Fondle?
Yeah, wow. It's the first release from Fondle. It was the Cenobites album EP, sort of halfway there.
Well, Godfather Don put out the thing in 95, right?
No.
Did Godfather Don put out an EP in 95, or am I misremembering that?
No, that's the Cenobites.
Oh, okay. So it was under the Cenobites name. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the MHZ also was on Fondle, which was RJD2's first group with copyright. So it was a big thing. Big thing in the sense of there was a lot of buzz, but it was a strictly underground buzz. And by the time Operation Doomsday came out, that was the first time Fondle did a CD. And it was sort of...
Because they were strictly vinyl before that.
Yeah, it was Cenobites, Juggernauts were only on vinyl. And it was sort of against his... mindset for Bobbito, because all he wanted to do was put out vinyl singles. But yeah, there was a little bit of hype, and I guess he had to do the CD, and that's when the album came out. I hadn't heard of that album when it came out, and I saw it mentioned on the internet maybe 2000 or 2001, but it completely flew over me. And even if I was still young, I was up on underground shit. Well, maybe mid-ground level, but it wasn't a huge thing, even if it had underground New York buzz. But then again, I am not from there, so I missed it. But in retrospect, it's a very important album. I think this is the point where in Doom's career, you have history, the three sides of Doom showcased well on this album. You have Doom the rapper, you have Doom the producer, and you have Doom the imagery. Because that's when all the comic book references came and the villains and all that. So, and he sort of built his persona on Operation Doomsday, and also defined his rapping style, well, post Zev Love X, and also the production style. So it's sort of a great introduction to MF Doom as the figure. Perhaps I don't think we consider it his number one album, but it is like very much the MF Doom album.
Yeah, I think of it as the origin story. Like, that's kind of how I was trying to frame the discussion. Maybe I'm trying to force the narrative a little bit, but you have Zev Love X, who is Daniel Dumoulin coming in with his own persona as a rapper, and then life happens to him, so he writes his own narrative and becomes MF Doom, and then he writes Operation Doomsday, and he's writing his own origin story. And for me as a listener, it's Mad Villainy, Food, Victor Vaughn, King Ghidorah. Those are the important records for me. But listening to this, again, fresh for the podcast, every time I listen to it, there's more I find to enjoy in terms of Doom as a rapper.
He has a lot of guests.
Fucking Doomsday is an amazing track. Red Bull is an amazing track.
That's one of my favorite Doom songs.
He
Doomsday, definitely.
fucking ices a lot of this shit. Like, you really feel like, especially listening to this compared to the Zev stuff, that he is just refining himself as a rapper, finding new ways to say shit that he was trying to say before, but having a new, more confident voice to say it.
Yeah, I think, well, at the time, yeah, it wasn't popular, but even when the 2003 stuff came out, the people that listened to those records were sort of the Def Jux fans, and MF Doom was sort of in the nerd rap category.
Unlike the Def Jux fans who are just chads as fuck.
No, but that's where it sort of got lumped, like in this underground New York hip hop wave, and a lot of people were not into it because of its, well, the comic book reference and all the nerdy shit, but then again, they listened to Wu-Tang with the Kung Fu shit. But it was
By the way, one of my favorite things you ever said on the boards, I don't know if it was in the boards or in a review, where you were just like, somebody was talking about a rapper being authentic, and you replied with, "Do you think Jizza really swings swords?"
I don't remember writing that, but that's something I would write.
That is classic stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm impressed with myself.
I like how impressed you are with something you don't remember.
Oh, people say that to me all the time. Oh, you said this, and it really affected me. It's like, oh yeah, I said this. Yeah, dope.
Yeah,
it sounds like something I would say.
Sounds like something I said. All right.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, I absolutely said that.
I'll take credit for that shit. Moving on.
So anyway, so for Doomsday, no one listened to it aside from the real people. I was reading a story about Cosmo Baker, who's a DJ from Philadelphia, and he had Doom do a house party for him in 2001, and everybody that came to the party knew all the lyrics to Operation Doomsday, because that's the only thing he had out at that time. And that for me, that shows how much of a following that album had, even if it was pretty hard to get.
Yeah, clearly it had resonance across a lot of scenes, even though it was difficult to acquire. So
Yeah, but I think what surprised me, I think the most with his death is that people would people that would say, "Oh shit, that's my favorite rapper that died," and you look at him and it's a SoundCloud rapper doing something completely different. So Doom sort of elevated to this legendary status because of the imagery and everything, or even we were talking about Earl Sweatshirt and Tyler that were such big fans, even if they're not exactly making music like it. It's just Doom with the years sort of became this status like Rakim or KRS-One or Tupac. It's like he became like sort of this legend. But it took a long time because unlike most of the classic rappers, he wasn't on any mainstream label, major label. So it took time, but I guess the internet helped with that. But I was just like, even I think 2-3 years ago, there on Radio Music, I saw, I was like, wow, this Doom album has like 5,000 ratings. I was like, what happened? Like, how did this become a big thing? Because even when Food came out, it wasn't even a consensus album of the year between hip hop fans at that time. Like, I'm sure if we look at the 2004 charts, it's probably going to be like number 2 behind Mad Villainy, or no, there's College Dropout too. But yeah, in the top 5 for sure. But back then, it wasn't even. It was sort of split, or because it was only like the Def Jux fans that were checking for Doom at that time. So a lot of his praise comes from revisiting, like people finding out about later, which is pretty interesting because it makes his persona a little bit more like legendary. So like, oh, here's Doom. It's like, you know how these painters were not popular until they died. It's Doom sort of this mystical figure that sort of became huge after he stopped rapping or after his death.
And I feel like that's something that he, at least after, post rapping consistently, putting out projects consistently, was something that he cultivated. He probably I think he even cultivated, during his, he wore a mask, but like that's that kind of persona and like mystique around an artist of Doom, I think is part of why I'll speak from my experience getting into him. Like, there's one day where you don't know who this guy is, and you see the Mad Villainy album cover, on the internet. You're like, oh, I want to listen to this. Like, this is interesting. And it just sounds like, at your time, a reference point, nothing you've heard before. And the rapping is like nothing you've heard before. And the whole, like, aesthetic's a bad word, but like aesthetic and mystique around it is something that can bring a lot of people in, and then it can make Doom. It can quickly make you into a huge fan of Doom because, once you keep going from album to album, that style of rapping and that the way he presents himself in his music is pretty consistent, I would say. Once you hit Doomsday and beyond.
One thing that struck me when after his death is I had forgotten how good of a rapper he was.
Yeah, he's a fucking great rap. Like that, I'm sorry to cut you off, but like that's something that struck me from the KMD era, actually. Like, even like, I hate to be pandering to rappers from that era, but for somebody from 1991, dude was fucking good. For a 19-year-old in 1991, dude could rap his ass off.
But it was more quirky, like the style, his rapping, starting from the MF Doom persona, is a lot more focused. and
Right. He made a conscious decision to change the way he rapped. I think that was part of him establishing a character. We actually talked about this a bit on the our least I think it's our least listened to episode, the one where it was oddly enough, considering I piss a lot of Makami fans off, Mock's Hard Lemonade versus Venomous Villain, where about establishing characters. How
we say
that.
Ami. I thought it was Omi.
But
you're probably right.
It's just about like establishing characters, though. Like, and we have a discussion on that episode about who did this first, Doom or Keith, and like Keith technically did it first, but was Keith just really doing it first, or just saying he was doing it and rapping the same way? Whereas Doom kind of inhabited the character and changed the way he rapped, whereas Keith just said he was doing it and rapped the same way. Not saying Keith wasn't rapping really well, but he just kind of did the same shit and just changed the content.
Dr. Doom's a lot different than regular Keith. It's like his pissed off persona.
I don't think Dr. Doom is that different than Dr. Octagon.
Well, it's not that different, but like the topics
Dr. Octagon raps future. Dr. Doom raps about like murder, but it's like they're the same rhyme scheme. They're the same. Like he just kind of swaps out like content wise. He swaps it out, but he's still doing the same shit.
No,
it's still really good.
Topics.
I like both those albums a lot. I like that era of Keith a lot, but it's like Doom literally changed his whole way of rapping. And I think Ghidorah, Victor, like he gets a lot of shit. If you look at those Pitchfork reviews, to take it back to that, it's like they give him shit for not changing it up enough. I think that's a hollow criticism. I think Doom does change it up.
Well, it's Pitchfork, so.
Well, it's not very good. But
in that time, we did not take Pitchfork seriously, like as a pop fan.
No one should ever. So,
no, but I think now, like, but you can't deny, like, I guess Pitchforks are not as big as they were, but like if they would give like Kendrick 10, well, no, Kendrick's already gonna blow up anyway, but like if they would give a new rapper a 9,
a 10, like it's not an artist you value very much, but if they gave Whole Lot of Red a 10, that would have given it a bump that it wouldn't have otherwise.
No, but that's the thing. They don't have that sort of influence as much as before. But like a good Kid, Mad City, the review they gave it, album of the year, I think it played into the status at that time.
I think it's funny that you bring that up because that's the one Kendrick album you really don't like for some reason.
I it's not that I don't like it; it's I don't love it.
I thought your opinion on it grew a little after Butterfly came out. When
that album came out, I became a father, and a lot of the topics on that album, I couldn't
about peer pressure, I guess, and about
I couldn't relate to what he was rapping about because I was ready to step to another thing, another era of my life, and I was just listening. And like, this is some young kid shit. I could not connect to it. Kendrick grew on me after as a rapper, and I can go back to it. But my problem is mostly the production. I like some of the beats, but not all of the beats.
Well, I mean, something like Backseat Freestyle is clearly self-conscious about what it's doing.
True. Diction, how do you like Sing About Me?
Yeah.
Sing About Me is my favorite.
Honestly, the Good Kid, Mad City part directly in the middle is my favorite part of that album.
That's with the Compton's Most Wanted beat. I like
that transition just fucking kills me every goddamn time.
No, I like the album better now, but I like it better than Damn. That's not one for me.
Yeah, Damn has not aged well for me. I'd probably knock that down to a 7.
Remember when Fantano gave it a 7? You got shit on.
Well,
I don't know. I think
clock.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think the rapping.
I mean, I'm sure he probably had bad reasons for it because he's not a very good reviewer.
Yeah, I think I don't know.
I mean, fucking Marshall shits on people not liking Ya. Ya's a crap song. Love's a crap song. Like, there are crap songs on that album, dude. Like, the best thing that album gave anybody was, first of all, that album got Bono a paycheck, so fuck you, Kendrick. And second of all,
that's like the best thing Bono's ever done.
Be Humble is the best thing that album gave the world.
That album had DNA on it. Are you nuts?
Okay, fair enough. I'll take a step back.
Well, anyway, I feel that it's not an album for my.
You gave that album 1.5. You hate that album.
Yeah, no, but I understand it's a very important album. It's
not really that important. It's not very good.
No, but I mean, like on Metacritic, it's like the top-rated hip-hop album of like the last 5 years.
Loves Taylor Swift.
No, they're not like.
No, Metacritic is an aggregate of all critics. Like
no, but that's the thing is like a lot of critics love it. It gained some prizes and whatever. But for me,
he won a Pulitzer for it.
So I don't.
Which I think is retroactive for just like acknowledging hip hop.
Yeah, it was. I'm just saying, like that's a.
They were just like, oh, who's the hip hop guy?
But it's also
it doesn't matter that Kendrick won a Pulitzer. It just is funny that, like, I mean, hip hop finally. I mean, it's good hip hop won a Pulitzer, long overdue.
I mean, no, the album overall, I like the album, but I feel like it has problems. It has two of my least favorite Kendrick songs on it. I don't know, man. I don't ever come back to that album.
I like. The first one a lot.
It was so insanely popular that like my association with the album is impossible to be divorced from hearing it the whole year after it came out. And I don't even mean that in a bad way. I just mean that like I'm gonna have like some fond associations of hearing it for like a year after it came out.
By the way,
it was the biggest album in the world.
Since Diction brought this up, he was talking about 2004. He said that the top 3 would probably be Mad Villainy and Food. He was mostly right. Number 1 is Mad Villainy. Number 3 is Food. Number 2 is Diction's second favorite rapper behind Earl Sweatshirt, Kanye West, the college dropout.
I when that album came out and Mad Villainy came out, you know which one I rated better?
You like College Dropout better, yeah.
Yep. So I was a total Kanye stan.
Until graduation.
Diction invented Kanye too, though.
Yeah, no, but Damn and Graduation have a lot of correlation.
Not really.
No, but I mean, it's
they do.
It's for.
I'm giving you the Larry David face right now.
No,
I mean, Kendrick is overtly more like. I mean, this is a dumb, shitty word, but like a little more pretentious in Damn. But no, I do think there's similarities.
Yeah, I don't think like that's the one thing you can't say about Kanye. Is I don't think Kanye has pretense.
No, I did not mean musically. I don't
think Kanye has
from a personal reception. Late Registration was a favorite of mine, and then Graduation was a big departure from it, and I think that's wherein he lost his ghostwriters because the rapping turned to shit.
No, like that was the thing about Graduation, dude. It took me a minute with that too because the rapping on Graduation is significantly worse.
Yeah, that's the first thing that stood out to me is that he's not rapping, and I could not get into his rapping anymore, and I used to defend.
The I Wonder beat doesn't have enough drums for you? That's a great beat.
Oh God, we're throwing shade like a
no. That's a genuine question because I know Dick. Don't you have this at like a 0.5 or something? So I'm just.
Oh no, that's one of his most hateful reviews. Is the Graduation review?
Oh yeah,
he put that in the Carter 3 review in like the same day.
No,
because we always have. I know the joke about Diction is the drums thing, but I really mean like. I always wanted to know what makes drums hard for you and what makes or stuff like that. Like what makes a beat like hard to you or what doesn't. Like I genuinely wanted.
Yeah, why
pick your brain?
Great,
but it's not important if it's hard or not for Kanye because aside from 2 words, there's not like a single hard beat on his 2 first albums or maybe another song here and there. But that was not his.
It's a fair point.
But. I do need to revisit that album because
I don't think you would like. I don't think that's a type of sound you like, regardless. So
no, but I would respect it a lot more than I did then. But when I wrote,
I mean, you like Lasers, which is, I think, a very glossy album.
Yeah.
Although lyrically, though, like Lupe is going to do Lupe shit. That's
but I think Lasers is influenced by fantasy more than Graduation.
Maybe the first 3 tracks, yes, on Lasers.
But it's got like a very grand epic sound, which I
really love the first track on Lasers. Actually, it's weird. I really like. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not here to defend my hot takes. Well, maybe on the ones I dislike, okay, but anyway, to get back to Damn, To Pimp a Butterfly was really one of my favorite albums of the decade, and he completely switched his style, went into a more trap sound, and it's devoid of funk. There's nothing funky about it, and
no, it's super rigid. I think that's
it's intentional, but it's just not for me.
I mean, I wouldn't call it anything on it trap, to be honest with you. But that's
Humble's trap. Humble's Alchemist doing trap.
So what about DNA?
DNA has trap elements.
Only because Mike Will produced it, people would label it trap. That's my
dude.
I didn't even know he
the most important thing to Diction, the drums on DNA, on the that's drum, that's trap break-in.
Oh well, it is Southern hip hop influence.
Also, DNA has some of the best rapping ever on it, so I don't care what the fuck he raps over.
But
the way that song breaks down at the end is pretty remarkable.
The creativity in To Pimp a Butterfly is for me through the roof. It's everything I want in hip hop productions, and like the funk, jazz, boom bap, and it takes even further than that, all mixed in together. Plus Kendrick being pretty much one of the best rappers. All that together made it such a great album.
I was up all night waiting for that, and when it dropped, it was a revelation. Like, To Pimp a Butterfly is like, it's the most RYM thing ever to say. It was like, change your fucking life. I have it at a 9 just because it'd be too RYM to have it at a 10.
It was a big fucking deal when that album came out.
That album, though, like, there's so much about it, man. Like,
I didn't care when it dropped.
The only thing about it is that I don't think he needed to do so much Pac on the end.
Yeah, well, that long track at the end, well, it's a cool concept, but it's not something you want to hear 10 million times.
Exactly. Like, he could have cut the best parts out of that interview and but that's fucking Monday morning quarterbacking it.
But I didn't expect anything because for me, Good Kid, Mad City was overrated. So everybody getting hyped for the overrated guy's new album, which happens a lot in your 30s that you don't care, or maybe not for you.
Well, yeah. What's the 30s? Caleb didn't know.
No,
not yet.
No, but for me, 30 is when I stop being whatever the new hype thing is like, I don't care.
And maybe in your 40s you'll learn to like Billy Woods. We'll get there.
I plan on I like his guest spots a lot, but it's not his rapping. The problem is just the sort of harshness to the music that I don't know. I just need to click with one album, and I'll get.
Brass seemed like it was clicking.
I like More Mother a lot.
It's really funny that you're like, yeah, it's way too harsh. I like More Mother a lot. Billy
No, but I like, because I discovered from her jazz stuff Irreversible Entanglements, which is not very harsh. Well, it's not like smooth jazz.
No, it's not dissonant. It's not dissonant jazz.
So it gave me a good backdrop for me to get into a rapping style. And Like I need a good beat to get into the rapper, but once I get into the rapper, I
just don't
appreciate more beat
why
types.
Billy Woods has ever had a good beat, because he's had so many different styles of beat that I think one of them would have been up your fucking alley by now.
Probably. There's probably.
Yeah, but apparently not.
I mean, I didn't like. I gave all of his
You
albums.
didn't like the fucking Blockhead album. That's better production than he ever gave Aesop.
No.
Yeah, better than Labor Days. Better than Labor Days, bro.
Okay, well, it's we
can agree to disagree about this.
No, Blockhead agrees with you because he doesn't like his old shit.
Yeah.
But a lot of fans are like, no, your old shit's the best.
I mean, we'll do it. Like, you can be the guest on the Aesop episode, by the way, because you know him better than I do, and you and Sphinx can fucking yell at me about Aesop for a while.
I like Aesop Rock was like the sort of poster child of nerd rap and why it sucked.
I thought Sage Francis was that, actually, because like Sage is worse than Aesop about that, I would say.
I agree.
So
I never got into Sage like that. At least Aesop, I could get into a couple albums.
I think the Non-Prophets album is very non-pretentious in the sense of it. Well, it's all references to like early '90s hip hop. So he puts all group names and singles, and he makes rhymes with all that. So, well, I guess as a fan of that era, it's very fun to listen to, but.
I don't know. It's just something about Sage's way. Something about Sage. I don't know. But
I like his
Aesop,
early shit better.
Aesop, I could always appreciate what I heard, even if I didn't appreciate the way I heard it until, again, like, people always look at me weird when I say this, but it's like it took the fucking Homeboy collabs to make me appreciate Aesop and Ego Death.
Well, it's okay. One day I'll like Billy Woods like that.
Well, yeah, I'm going to keep pushing Arm & Hammer albums down your throat. But.
No, I like Schnarpel or whatever, however you say it.
You would think Diction would like race music more than some other Billy solo. That's my take.
I haven't heard that one actually.
Patrick,
I mean, he's not that French
Diction
with race music.
It's that's the first one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I didn't hear.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would say that I went with, Paraffin's my favorite.
I think the beats on race music are a little, and
race music's their most conventional, but it's also not their best.
I agree. It's good, but I never listen to it ever.
Yeah.
But
I think Shrines is really good, but I don't know if the beats on that would appeal to him because there's a lot of drumless shit that he wouldn't like.
I've heard Shrines, Paraffin, and Rome 2 times each. And I enjoyed them, but I wouldn't call them good.
Rome ends on a Frank Ocean sample, and you're going to like, why are there drums on this? Why is Frank Ocean
Yeah, no, but I'm open to changing my mind in the future about stuff. Like it's not impossible. Like John Wayne.
I mean, hey, I like Paramore now.
It's true.
It happens. It's
true.
But
John Wayne rap album 2, I didn't like it, and eventually
That's such a depressing album. I love that album. That album is so depressing.
No, but the first time I heard it, it's like, okay, this doesn't have beats. I don't care about his rapping, so I dismissed it. But a few songs came on shuffle or whatever, and I was like, oh my god, he's really saying some shit.
It's a weird album to just have on shuffle, where it's like, this is the song where he talks about drinking himself to death. Oh, this is a song where he sounds like he wants to die. Oh man, this is some cool shit for this song.
On Spotify, like plays similar music at the end. So if you have that option on, so when your album ends,
Suicidal Action Bronson, he's cool.
So the songs just came on that way, and that's how hearing them more. That's how I got into it, and eventually I really liked the album. So it's possible.
I'm very glad you liked my favorite album of that year, but. So I guess just to kind of tie this one in a neat little bow. So Doomsday.
How influential do you guys think it was ultimately?
I think when I hear the title track, I can hear songs like it that came after, but I don't necessarily know if I can place those songs, to be honest with you. I think you guys are better equipped at
the one thing
talking about it.
I forgot to mention this before. Doom would take a lot of cheap records and take parts from them and make a hip-hop beat out of it. So like in DJ culture, producer culture, a lot of the time is to get this rare funk 45 that's worth $100 or whatever, because it has like an amazing break on it and it's so obvious. But Doom, like Dilla, he could take parts of like a whack R&B song or whatever. Well, I'm not saying Saudi is a bad sample here, but just in general for that album. And he would take these like $2 records that you'd find in the dollar bin and find something in it and make a beat out of it. He was able to sort of have a little bit more vision in his sample selection compared to a lot of producers who just go for the instant, okay, this sounds good, I'm going to sample it. But he would go further. And Dilla is also one that would do similar things. So I think that's an influential part of it. It's also lo-fi, not in the sense of lo-fi hip-hop, but...
yeah, who approved that?
That was not me. But in the sense of like 1999, Rough Riders was popping. Jay-Z, Bad Boy was on his way out, but it was a lot of clean, very clean beats. And Doomsday, it sounds sloppy. Well, not in a bad way, but it's got that dirty hip-hop sound to it. Like sort of the early 90s ad. Like it's not done perfectly and nothing is like perfectly placed and it's not so clean. It's got that rugged, dirty hip-hop sound to it. And I think that's one of the key album. Well, of course, if you look at it now, since it's hugely popular, but it's one of the key albums of that era to bring back that sort of griminess into hip hop. And when people were moving towards a more clean sound to get more airplay or whatever, Doom just like didn't care about that. He went for his thing. And he rolled with it without really caring if it matched it with the current trends of the times. It's like, no, this is what I want to do, and he went with it.
Yeah, he aimed with his heart. He didn't care if it sounded good. Much like I don't care if my intros or outros sound good. Diction, Alex, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. You've really shown us a lot about Doom's career that I didn't see previously. Yeah, hope you guys join us later on the next two episodes on this journey. Also, our co-host was Caleb, Optimal. I don't think I introduced him, but he's been here.
Yeah, you guys know me by now. I'll promo the episode.
Yeah, right. You know, he'll do the actual promo on the episode, so he'll do all the work. But we have been living off borrowed time. See you next time.
Living off borrowed time, the clock tick faster. That'll be the hour they knock the slick blaster. Dick Dastardly and Muttley with sick laughter. A gunfight and they come to cut the mix master. ICE Cole, nice to be old. Y2G Steve twice to threefold. He sold scrolls, low and behold. Know who's the illest ever, like the greatest story told. Keep your glory gold and glitter. For half of his niggas to take him out the picture. The other half is rich and it don't mean shit to villain. A mixture between both with a twist of liquor. Chase it with more beer. Taste it like truth for dear. When he at the mic, it's like the place get like, oh yeah. It's like they know what's about to happen. Just keep your eye out like I capping. Is he still a fly guy clapping if nobody ain't hear it? And can they testify from in the spirit? And living the true gods, giving y'all nothing but the lick like two broads. Got more lyrics than the church got ooh lords. And they hold the mic in your attention like two swords. Either that, or either one with two blades on it. Hey you, don't touch the mic like it's AIDS on it. Yeah, it's like the end to the means. Fuck type of message that sends to the fiends. That's why he bring his own needles and get more cheese than Doritos, Cheetos, or Fritos. Slip like Freudian, your first and last step to playing yourself like accordion. When he at the mic, you don't go next. Leaving pussycats like why hoes need Kotex. Exercise index won't need Bowflex and won't take the one with no skinny legs like Joe Tex.